Hi, and welcome to another episode of Hot Takes with me, the Silver Fox. There is that old gag, how can you tell when a politician is lying? Well, their lips are moving. And I think that is most definitely true in the case of Katy Loudon, the SNP candidate for Rutherglen and Hamilton West. She's been out about knocking on doors, talking to people and everything, doing the old usual smooze that these people do before an election. And she's made the most extraordinary claim. A claim that I certainly don't believe, and I'm pretty sure no one watching this video will believe. She says that in all the time she's knocked on doors and talked to people, only once has anyone asked about Margaret Ferrier. Now, I find that very hard to believe. In terms of, I think that's so hard to believe that I think the only excuse is either she is a liar, and she's completely lying and saying that, or that her door knocking is pre-arranged. She's got her flunkies running out ahead of her, knocking on the door and saying, oh, Katy Loudon will be here in a moment to talk to you. Don't mention Margaret Ferrier's name. And, of course, all these knocks will be for SNP supporters because they won't want to damage this young girl's fragile ego by actually having her knocking on the door of someone who's not prepared to vote for the worst party in Britain. So that's got to be the claim. Why on earth would she claim this? It is so unbelievable because I think anyone who's Labour or Conservative or Lib Dem or anything, anyone not prepared to vote SNP will most certainly be bringing up Margaret Ferrier. Anyway, we'll take a look at it, see what's going on and see why this woman is obviously either a liar or massively deluded. Here goes. So voters want to talk about Labour divisions, not Margaret Ferrier, claims SNP by-election candidate and serial liar. Katy Loudon said Margaret Ferrier's name has been raised just once on the doorsteps since she started campaigning this summer. I think that is remarkably unbelievable. Doesn't she look a bit like Rachel Weisz in that picture? Anyway, voters in Rutherglen and Hamilton West want to talk about divisions in Labour and not Margaret Ferrier, the SNP candidate in a crunch by-election, has claimed. Now, by saying that, it's obvious then that she's only been knocking on SNP doors. She hasn't been knocking on any Labour doors. And of course, the managers that run these campaigns, campaign managers, they have lists of where they know that the SNP supporters are, Labour supporters are, Conservative supporters are, from previous door knockings and things like that. So they kind of know. So they can tailor this to sort of put her around on SNP only knocks. Which isn't the sort of thing you're going to do if you want to win an election, because you need to knock on the opposition doors. You can take your own voters for granted. You can't. You've got to knock on the opposition doors. I've stood a few elections, and not one, but we did better. I actually had the best result for quite some time. Still lost. But again, you can't just keep knocking on your own side. You've got to knock on the opposition. Anyway, voters in... done that bit. Katy Loudon insisted the constituency's shamed former MP had been raised just once on the doorsteps since she started campaigning this summer. And that's got to be a lie. It's just not true. It's unbelievable, Ferrier was booted out after more than 10% of local voters signed a recall petition. It was near 15%, if I remember. Anyway, that was to remove her from office after she was found to have broken strict lockdown travel rules after testing positive for COVID. Rules that she helped vote in. The resulting by-election is due to take place in October, probably the 5th, maybe the 12th. And it has seen Labour and the SNP pour huge resources into their campaigns to win this marginal seat. Asked how often Ferrier's name was being brought up, Loudon said, in the months that we have been chapping doors, quite literally once. Whoa, once on every door knock. Don't believe you. This woman is clearly lying. It's absolutely not true. If she was knocking doors as she said, there's no way Ferrier's name came up once. She says, I introduced myself as the candidate and the person was delighted to meet me. She was an SNP supporter and apparently that's all they're knocking on. And she said, that was a shame about Margaret, wasn't it? I mean, this is so obviously spin, bullshit, lies and bollocks, isn't it? We both agreed it was a sad situation, but at the end of the day, she should have gone when she had the opportunity. Yeah, and it'll be your turn to go soon. You'll have the opportunity at the end of the election when you're booted out. Speaking to the record, while campaigning in Rutherglen, Loudon said she was among the voters to sign the recall petition. So she's actually signed to get rid of her. There was a lot of SNP supporters did this, you know. Ferrier lost the SNP whip in 2020, but refused repeatedly to stand down, despite being urged to do so by her local party branch. Now, what's it got to do with her local party? She lost the whip. She wasn't in the party anymore, and yet they felt obliged to go and say, oh no, you got to step down. Hang on, I'll step down if you take me back. And they didn't. Anyway, Loudon is now tasked with retaining the seat. Well, he can't retain the seat. It was an independent seat. He's now tasked with re-winning the seat for Humza Yousaf's party, which would be, well, we can change that to the party run by Patrick Harvey. It's really Patrick Harvey's party, isn't it? Which would be a huge boost for the Nationalists ahead of the general election, which is expected to see Labour make huge gains across the country. We did the thing yesterday, the poll yesterday. Labour really only need to take 2 more seats from the SNP, and Labour will be the biggest party. The SNP will be minority to Labour, and that would be probably the end of Humza Yousaf. Anyway, the SNP candidate insisted voters could see how divided Labour was on key policy issues. Has she not looked at her own party? The divisions there are so big, so immense, so many. It's a fractured mess. Keir Starmer appeared alongside Anna Sawar in the town this week, where they quizzed on why their party would not commit to scrapping the 2-child cap on benefits. Money, can't afford it. Even Labour know that. Scottish Labour is opposed to the policy, but Starmer has insisted he will not make unfunded commitments. See what I mean? It's money. They just can't. Michael Shanks, the party's by-election candidate, also said he would not be against the UK rejoining the EU in the future. But again, you'd have to have a referendum, and it's not likely to win. Starmer previously closed the door on UK re-entering the EU in a bid to win the pro-Brexit Red Wall voters. He said they can sit beside each other in the town hall and pretend everything is hunky-dory between UK Labour and Scottish Labour. Has she not seen the divisions in the SNP? Ask her whether she thinks being with the Greens is a good idea, because every backbencher in Holyrood says it's a bad idea. We know the candidate is saying one thing and he would vote against this, that and the other, but the reality is if he was elected, he would be following the Starmer whip. And if you were elected, you'd be following the mad whip of Humza Yousaf, policy dictated by the Greens. So, you know, let's be honest about that. She said there's a long list of things Keir Starmer has U-turned on, and he's now quite happy to let a hard Brexit rumble on. So what? What's that got to do with anything? It's you aren't standing as a Labour candidate. You're standing as an SNP candidate. Stop running down Labour and tell us what you want to do in your seat, instead of saying what Labour should do if they win it. Beaten already, isn't she? Asked if Brexit was an issue concerning local voters, Loudon says, I do, because we know how much a hard Brexit has cost the UK economy. And we know what effects that has had on everything. We're talking about food prices or fuel prices. Neither of them are done by Brexit. Food prices are done by Ukraine, because all the grain that comes from Ukraine has gone through the roof. That affects everything. And fuel prices, much the same. It's like Russia invading Ukraine has done this. Nothing to do with Brexit. The woman lives in cloud cuckoo land. But then she thinks that people don't talk about Margaret Ferrier. Oh, she'll be a very disappointed woman come that Friday morning when the count is completed and the Labour candidate has won. I shall round off and come up. So there you are. Either, like I say, delusional or lying. There is no way Margaret Ferrier's name has not come up on the doorstep. And why does she keep deflecting by talking about what Labour would do, what Labour won't do, and all the problems in Labour? Why is she not talking about the SNP? She doesn't seem to be very sure-footed on that. She doesn't want to say anything about SNP policy, because nobody knows what SNP policy is. Will you dual the A96? Oh, I don't have a vote on that. I don't have an option. Will you vote for the gender bill? You know, you're a woman. Do you want to be protected or not? You know, and all these things. And you can ask them these questions. Questions that are riven in the SNP. It's split. Virtually every policy point in the SNP is split. And she won't talk about that. So she has to talk about other parties. Talk about your own party, love. See if you can. See if you can stand there and look in that mirror. Look deep into the soul of your party. It's a void, isn't it? Anyway, I'll still stop there. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you like this video. If you do please subscribe. It really helps. It helps get the news out there. Helps spread the truth. And until next time, stay safe, stay well, and do mention Margaret Ferrier. Bye.